The Galactic Military Academy stood like a massive crystal fortress on the edge of Kepler Station, its transparent walls offering a breathtaking view of 3 moons hanging in the purple sky. Inside the main training complex, 200 cadets from 40 different species gathered for what everyone called the final trial. It was the last test before graduation, the one that separated those who would serve in the Galactic Defense Force from those who would return home with nothing but participation certificates. Nina Cole checked her weapon for the 3rd time. The rifle felt light in her hands, almost toy-like. That was intentional. Training weapons were designed to fire stun rounds, little packets of compressed air that would knock you down and leave a nasty bruise, but nothing more. Nothing permanent. Nothing that would actually hurt you beyond a few days of soreness. "Stop fidgeting," Tyler Grant said beside her. He was tall for a human, with dark hair and the kind of easy smile that made everyone around him relax. They had been partners since their first day at the academy 2 years ago, and Nina trusted him more than anyone else in the entire station. "I'm not fidgeting," Nina replied, but she stopped checking her weapon anyway. She looked around at the other cadets. There were Velkans with their 6 arms, already forming tactical groups. There were Horthians, floating in their environmental suits because they needed methane to breathe. There were Praxians, looking bored and confident because everyone knew they had the fastest reflexes in the galaxy. And then there were the humans. Just 12 of them out of 200 cadets. The others looked at them the way you might look at children who had wandered into an adult conversation. Humans were new to the galactic community, barely 50 years since first contact. They were small compared to most species. Weak compared to many. Slow compared to the Praxians. Fragile compared to the Velkans. But Nina had not come this far to fail now. Instructor Veldar moved to the center of the staging area. He was a Velkian, which meant he had gray skin like stone and eyes that never seemed to blink. His voice boomed through the complex without any need for amplification. "Today's scenario is urban pacification," he announced. "There are hostile targets hidden throughout the complex. Your job is to locate and neutralize them. You will work in pairs. Your score depends on speed, accuracy, and tactical efficiency. You have 2 hours. Begin." The cadets scattered immediately, moving into the simulation complex through different entry points. The complex was a maze of corridors and rooms, designed to look like a city under siege. There were overturned vehicles, shattered windows, fake fires burning in barrels. It looked real enough to make Nina's heart beat faster. Tyler moved ahead, his rifle up and ready. Nina followed 3 steps behind, covering their flank. This was how they always worked. Tyler had better instincts for danger. Nina had better aim. Together they made a solid team. They cleared the first corridor without incident. The second corridor had 2 hostile targets, practice drones that popped out from behind cover. Tyler took one. Nina took the other. Both drones sparked and fell, their sensors registering the stun rounds as hits. 2 down, Tyler said. "Let's keep moving." They entered what looked like an old marketplace. There were stalls with fake fruits and clothes, all covered in dust to make everything look abandoned. The lighting was dim, just emergency strips along the floor casting long shadows. Nina felt something wrong before she understood what it was. The air felt different. Heavier somehow. She opened her mouth to say something to Tyler when the shot came. It was not the soft pop of a stun round. It was a crack, sharp and real, the kind of sound that made every muscle in your body go tight. Tyler jerked backward like someone had punched him in the chest. He hit the ground hard, and Nina saw the blood immediately. Real blood, dark and spreading fast across his uniform. Her brain did several things at once. First, it registered that this was wrong, completely wrong, because training simulations did not have real bullets. Second, it calculated the angle of the shot and identified where the shooter had to be, somewhere in the upper level overlooking the marketplace. Third, it started counting. 23 seconds. That was how long she had before the shooter could reposition and take another shot. 23 seconds before whoever had just shot Tyler could shoot again. 23 seconds to save her partner's life. Nina did not scream. She did not freeze. She dropped to one knee beside Tyler and pressed her hand against the wound. The blood was hot against her palm, pumping out with each heartbeat. Chest wound, right side, possibly punctured lung. Her training as a combat medic took over, the same training her mother had drilled into her since she was 12 years old. "Stay with me," she said to Tyler. His eyes were open but unfocused, his breathing shallow and rapid. Shock was setting in fast. 15 seconds left. Nina grabbed Tyler under his arms and started dragging him backward toward cover. He was heavy, dead weight now, but adrenaline made her strong. She pulled him behind an overturned stall just as another shot cracked through the air, hitting exactly where they had been moments before. 10 seconds left. Nina ripped open Tyler's uniform. The wound was bad, worse than she had hoped. She needed to seal it, needed to stop the bleeding, needed to keep his lung from collapsing completely. Her hands moved automatically, pulling the emergency medical kit from her belt. 5 seconds left. She slapped a trauma seal over the wound, pressing hard to make sure it adhered. Tyler gasped, his body arching with pain, but the seal held. It would not save him, not permanently, but it would buy time. 0 seconds. Nina rolled to the side just as another shot hit the stall above her head, sending splinters of fake wood everywhere. She came up with her rifle, found the shooter's position in the upper gallery, and fired 3 times in rapid succession. The shooter fell, tumbling from the gallery to crash onto the marketplace floor below. Nina kept her rifle trained on the figure until she was certain there was no more movement. Only then did she turn back to Tyler. His breathing was still shallow, but the seal was holding. Blood had stopped spreading across his uniform. Nina looked down at herself and saw that she was covered in it. Tyler's blood soaked into her clothes and smeared across her hands. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to sound. The alarms cut through the training complex like knives, sharp and urgent. In the control room 3 levels above the simulation zone, Instructor Veldar stared at his monitors with all 6 of his hands frozen in midair. What he was seeing made no sense. The medical sensors embedded in every cadet's uniform were designed to monitor health during training. Right now, Tyler Grant's sensors showed critical damage. Real damage. The kind that should not exist in a training exercise. "Shut it down," Veldar commanded. His voice was steady, but his hands were already moving across the control panels. "Emergency stop. All systems. Now." The other instructors scrambled to comply. Training drones powered down. Holographic targets flickered and disappeared. Safety barriers dropped into place throughout the complex. But none of that mattered anymore because somewhere in the urban marketplace section, a human cadet was dying from a gunshot wound that should never have existed. "How did live ammunition get into the training zone?" demanded Instructor Krell. She was Horthian, her methane suit hissing slightly as she moved closer to the monitors. "We have 17 different safety checks." 17. "I don't know," Veldar replied. He pulled up the security footage, rewinding to the moment of the shot. "But we need medical teams in there immediately." On the monitors they watched the scene replay. Tyler Grant taking point. Nina Cole 3 steps behind. The shot. Tyler falling. And then Nina moved. Veldar had trained soldiers for 30 years across a dozen species. He had seen Velkian warriors who could crush steel with their bare hands. He had seen Praxian scouts who could dodge plasma fire. He had seen Horthian commanders who could calculate battle strategies while under direct assault. But he had never seen anything quite like what Nina Cole did in those 23 seconds. She did not panic. She did not call for help. She simply moved with a precision that seemed impossible for someone who had just watched their partner get shot. Drop to one knee. Assess the wound. Apply pressure. Drag to cover. Deploy medical seal. Return fire. Every action was clean, efficient, mechanical. Like she had done this 1,000 times before. "Replay that section," Krell said quietly. "The part where she drags him." Veldar rewound the footage. They watched as Nina grabbed Tyler under his arms and pulled him backward across the marketplace floor. Her movements were smooth despite the weight, her eyes constantly scanning the upper levels for the shooter. When the second shot came, she had already predicted it, was already moving, already positioning Tyler's body to use the overturned stall as cover. She knew where the next shot would come from, Krell observed. She calculated the shooter's position and predicted their next move, while covered in her partner's blood, while performing emergency medical treatment. In the corner of the control room, Cadet Drexel stood watching with his mouth hanging open. He was Praxian, one of the top students in their combat class, and he had just watched a human do something he was not sure he could do. His species was known for fast reflexes, but reflexes alone were not enough for what Nina had just accomplished. She had functioned through what should have been complete psychological shutdown. "How is she still moving?" Drexel asked. "My people would need at least 30 seconds to process the trauma. Most species would freeze entirely." Veldar did not answer. He was too busy coordinating the medical response. Emergency teams were already rushing into the simulation complex, their equipment scanning for Tyler's location. But Nina had taken him deeper into the maze, away from the marketplace, away from wherever the shooter might have backup. The footage showed her dragging Tyler through corridors, checking his breathing every few seconds, adjusting the trauma seal when it started to slip. Her face was blank, Emotionless, like she had shut down every part of herself that was not absolutely necessary for survival. It was disturbing to watch. Efficient, yes. Effective, yes. But disturbing. "Sir, we have a problem," one of the technicians called out. "The ammunition in the training weapons. It's been replaced. Not just in the shooter's weapon. In all of them." The control room went silent. Every instructor turned to stare at the technician. "What do you mean all of them?" Veldar asked slowly. "I mean every single training weapon in the simulation zone now has live ammunition loaded." Someone swapped out the stun rounds. The technician's fingers danced across his console, pulling up inventory records. The swap happened during the night cycle. Whoever did this had access to our armory and our security systems. Krell moved closer to Veldar. "This was not an accident. This was sabotage. Or assassination," Veldar replied quietly. He looked back at the monitors at Nina Cole still dragging Tyler through the corridors. Someone wanted human cadets dead. In the medical bay, Dr. Senna was already prepping for emergency surgery. She was Velkian like Veldar with the same gray skin and multiple arms that made her incredibly efficient at surgical procedures. Her team had the operating theater ready, sterile fields active, blood supplies standing by. Everything was prepared for Tyler Grant's arrival. What they were not prepared for was Nina Cole. She came through the medical bay doors carrying Tyler in her arms, his head cradled against her chest in what Dr. Senna recognized as an emergency transport position. Nina was covered in blood from head to toe, her uniform soaked through, her face streaked with red. She looked like something from a nightmare. "Chest wound, right side, possible punctured lung," Nina reported. Her voice was flat, clinical. "I deployed a trauma seal at the scene. Bleeding is controlled but he needs surgery immediately. Heart rate is elevated, breathing is shallow, signs of shock are present." Dr. Senna's team moved forward to take Tyler, but Nina did not let go immediately. Her eyes scanned the operating theater, checking equipment, verifying readiness. Only when she was satisfied did she lower Tyler onto the surgical table. "You did well," Dr. Senna said gently. "We will take care of him now." Nina nodded once, then stepped back. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally starting to wear off. She looked down at herself, at the blood covering her uniform, and for the first time since the shooting, her face showed emotion. Not fear. Not sadness. Just a cold, hard anger that made Dr. Senna take an involuntary step backward. "Who did this?" Nina asked quietly. "We don't know yet," Dr. Senna replied. "But the instructors are investigating." Nina looked at the operating theater where Tyler lay unconscious, then back at Dr. Senna. "Find them." It was not a request. It was an order. The image would haunt the Galactic Military Academy for years to come. Nina Cole walking through the medical bay doors, covered entirely in blood, carrying Tyler Grant like he weighed nothing at all. His head was pressed against her chest, her arms locked around him in a position that combat medics used when every second counted. The blood was not just on her hands or her uniform. It was everywhere. In her hair. On her face. Soaked through her clothes until the original color was impossible to see. The alien cadets in the medical bay waiting area stood frozen as she passed. None of them had ever seen anything like this. Velkians were warriors, yes, but they wore armor that prevented this kind of carnage. Praxians were fast enough to avoid most damage. Horthians fought from inside protective suits. But humans, these small fragile humans, apparently just walked through blood and kept functioning. Cadet Thexari pressed herself against the wall as Nina walked past. She was Velkian, twice Nina's size, trained in combat since she could walk. But something about the human's eyes made Thexari want to run. They were empty. Cold. Like looking into the eyes of a machine that only understood one thing. Keep Tyler alive. After the medical team took Tyler, Nina stood in the corner of the medical bay and did not move. She did not sit. She did not clean the blood off her hands. She just stood there, watching through the window as Dr. Senna worked on Tyler's chest wound. Her face showed nothing. No fear. No relief. Nothing. Instructor Veldar entered the medical bay and approached her carefully. "Cadet Cole, you need medical attention yourself. You may be injured." "I'm not injured," Nina replied without looking at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on Tyler through the window. "The blood is all his." Veldar felt something uncomfortable twist in his stomach. He had read the reports about human psychology, about how they process trauma differently than most species. But reading reports was different from seeing it in person. You performed field surgery under combat conditions. That requires a psychological evaluation before you can return to duty. He would have died in 4 minutes without intervention, Nina said. Her voice was still flat, still clinical. The trauma seal bought him 12 minutes. I calculated that medical teams would take at least 8 minutes to reach us. I made the right choice. I'm not questioning your choices, Veldar said gently. You saved your partner's life. But you need to be evaluated. It's protocol. Finally Nina looked at him. Her eyes were not empty anymore. Now they burned with something that made Veldar take a step back. Protocol didn't keep live ammunition out of training weapons. Protocol didn't stop someone from trying to murder Tyler. So forgive me if I don't care much about protocol right now. Before Veldar could respond, Instructor Krell entered the medical bay with a data pad in her hands. Her methane suit hissed as she moved. We have the surveillance footage compiled. Command wants a full review. Can it wait? Veldar asked, glancing at Nina. No, Krell replied. The shooter is dead. Cadet Cole killed them with 3 shots. But we need to understand what happened in those 23 seconds. The footage is already being reviewed by the Defense Council. Nina turned to face Krell fully. Who was the shooter? Krell hesitated, then activated her data pad. A holographic image appeared, showing a Velkian male in academy uniform. His name was Korath. 4th-year cadet. Top marks in weapons training. Why? Nina asked. We don't know yet. But we found communications on his personal device. He was part of a group that believed humans should not be allowed in the Galactic Defense Force. Krell deactivated the hologram. They saw you as weak. A liability. They wanted to prove that humans couldn't handle real combat. Nina laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. How's that working out for them? In the control room, the Defense Council was watching the footage for the 3rd time. Admiral Thexon, the highest-ranking officer in the entire Galactic Defense Force, stood with his arms crossed as the 23 seconds played out on the main screen. Shot fired. Tyler falls. Nina drops and assesses in under 2 seconds. Applies pressure while scanning for the shooter. Drags Tyler to cover while a second shot misses by centimeters. Deploys trauma seal. Returns fire with 3 perfect shots. All in 23 seconds. Play it again, Admiral Thexon commanded. The technician complied. They watched the footage a 4th time. Then a 5th. Each time, Admiral Thexon saw something new. The way Nina's hands never fumbled despite the blood. The way she predicted the second shot. The way she transitioned from medic to soldier and back to medic without any hesitation. This is what human combat stress response looks like, said Dr. Chin, the human psychological advisor attached to the academy. She was an older woman with gray hair and a calm demeanor. What you're seeing is called hyperfocus. When humans face extreme stress, some of them shut down. But others, they become extremely focused. Everything unnecessary disappears. All that remains is the mission. She didn't even flinch when the second shot came, one of the council members observed. How is that possible? She predicted it, Dr. Chin explained. Humans are pattern recognition specialists. Nina calculated the shooter's position, their reload time, and their most likely next target. Then she moved before the shot came. It looks like prediction, but it's actually very fast calculation based on incomplete information. Admiral Thexon finally turned away from the screen. How many humans can do this? We don't know, Dr. Chin admitted. Combat stress affects everyone differently. But humans have a long history of warfare on their home planet. Millions of years of evolution have shaped certain survival traits. The ability to function under extreme stress is one of them. This changes things, Admiral Thexon said quietly. If human cadets can perform like this, then we've been underestimating them. Back in the medical bay, Dr. Senna emerged from the operating theater. Her multiple arms were folded, a sign of satisfaction in Velkian body language. Tyler Grant will survive. The surgery was successful. He will need recovery time, but there will be no permanent damage. Nina's shoulders dropped slightly. It was the first sign of relaxation she had shown in over an hour. Can I see him? Not yet. He needs to stabilize. But soon. Dr. Senna studied Nina carefully. You should clean up. And rest. You've been through a traumatic experience. I'm fine, Nina said automatically. You're covered in your partner's blood, Dr. Senna replied gently. That's not fine. That's never fine. Please let us help you. Nina looked down at herself, really seeing the blood for the first time. Her hands were red. Her uniform was stiff with dried blood. She probably looked like something from a horror story. Okay, she said quietly. As she walked toward the cleaning facilities, the other cadets in the medical bay parted to let her pass. They looked at her differently now. Not with pity or confusion. With something closer to fear mixed with respect. The small human who had walked through blood and come out the other side still standing. The interrogation room was cold and sterile, designed to make people uncomfortable. 3 Velkian security officers sat across from Cadet Miroke, a 4th-year student who had been friends with Koreth, the shooter. Miroke's gray skin had gone pale, and all 6 of his hands were shaking on the metal table. "Tell us again about the group," the lead investigator said. Her name was Captain Valera, and she had been conducting military investigations for 20 years. "How many members?" Miroke swallowed hard. 15. Maybe 20. I don't know everyone. Koreth kept it secret. He said humans were making the academy weak. That they couldn't handle real combat. That they would get real soldiers killed. "So you decided to kill them first?" Valera said flatly. "No. I never wanted anyone to die. I thought Koreth was right about humans being too fragile. I didn't know he was planning to use live ammunition. I swear I didn't know." Miroke's voice cracked. "When I saw the footage of what that human girl did, I realized we were wrong. So wrong." Valera pulled up the surveillance footage on her data pad and turned it to face Miroke. "Watch it again. Tell me what you see." Miroke did not want to watch, but he had no choice. The 23 seconds played out. Nina dropping beside Tyler. The blood spreading. Nina's hands moving with impossible precision. The way she dragged him to cover while predicting the next shot. The 3 perfect shots that killed Koreth. "She's a monster," Miroke whispered. "No," Valera replied coldly. "She's a soldier. A better soldier than you will ever be. And your friend tried to murder her partner because he was afraid of exactly this. Afraid that humans would prove you all wrong." The investigation spread quickly through the academy. Security teams searched dormitories and found encrypted communication devices. They discovered that the conspiracy went deeper than anyone had thought. It was not just students. 2 instructors were involved. A supply officer. Even a member of the Academy Council had provided access codes to the armory. All of them had the same belief. Humans did not belong in the Galactic Defense Force. They were too weak, too emotional, too fragile. They would break under pressure. They would get good soldiers killed. Admiral Thexon reviewed the evidence in his office overlooking the training complex. The list of conspirators sat on his desk, and each name made him angrier. These were people he had trusted. People who had sworn oaths to protect all species equally. "They sabotaged more than just the ammunition," Instructor Veldar reported. He stood at attention, but his hands were trembling with barely controlled rage. "They modified the training scenarios to be harder for human cadets. They adjusted performance scores. They even tried to get human applications rejected before they reached the academy." "For how long?" Admiral Thexon asked. 3 years. Since the first human cadets arrived." Admiral Thexon closed his eyes. 3 years of sabotage. 3 years of humans being set up to fail. And despite all of it, 12 human cadets had made it to their final year. 12 humans who had been working twice as hard, facing twice the challenges, and still succeeding. "What do we know about Cadet Cole's background?" the Admiral asked. Veldar pulled up Nina's file on his data pad. Mother was a combat medic in the Human Defense Forces. Father was a trauma surgeon. Nina grew up learning emergency medicine. She's been trained in field surgery since she was a child. And Cadet Grant? Tactical specialist. His family has military background going back 6 generations. He and Nina requested to be partners on their first day at the academy. Admiral Thexon studied the photos of Nina and Tyler. They looked so young in their academy uniforms, smiling at the camera. They looked nothing like the blood-covered soldier who had walked through the medical bay carrying her dying partner. "Have either of them shown signs of psychological trauma?" "That's what's interesting," Veldar replied. Dr. Chin evaluated Nina 3 times. No post-traumatic stress. No anxiety. No nightmares. She describes the incident like she's reading from a technical manual. Cold. Factual. Precise. How is that possible? Dr. Chin says it's a human trait called compartmentalization. They can separate their emotions from their actions during crisis situations. The emotions are still there, but they lock them away until the crisis is over. It allows them to function when other species would shut down. In the medical bay, Tyler Grant was finally awake. He lay in the recovery bed with bandages across his chest and monitors beeping softly beside him. Nina sat in a chair next to the bed. She had finally cleaned up, her uniform replaced with standard academy casual wear. But her eyes still had that hard, cold look. "You look terrible," Tyler said. His voice was weak but steady. "You got shot." Nina replied. I look fine. You killed someone. I killed someone who tried to kill you. Nina's voice did not change. I'd do it again. Tyler reached out and took her hand. Thank you for saving my life. Nina looked at their hands together. Hers were clean now, but she could still feel Tyler's blood on them. She could still feel the warmth of it, the way it had pumped out with each heartbeat. You would have done the same. Maybe, Tyler admitted. But I don't think I could have been as fast. Or as calm. I wasn't calm. I was terrified. Nina's voice finally cracked slightly. I thought you were going to die. I thought I was going to watch you die and there was nothing I could do. But you did do something. You saved me. Before Nina could respond, the door opened. Admiral Thexon entered, followed by Veldar and 2 security officers. Nina stood immediately, coming to attention. Tyler tried to sit up but winced in pain. At ease, cadets, the Admiral said. I'm here to inform you of the investigation's findings. He explained everything. The conspiracy. The 15 cadets and 2 instructors who had been involved. The sabotage that had gone on for 3 years. The plan to eliminate human cadets during the final trial when it would look like training accidents. Korath was supposed to shoot you both, Admiral Thexon said. Then other conspirators would shoot the remaining 10 human cadets. They were going to claim the humans panicked and fired on each other. No one would question it because everyone believed humans were too fragile for combat. Nina's hands clenched into fists. What happens to them now? Military tribunal. Conspiracy to commit murder. Sabotage of military operations. They'll spend the rest of their lives in prison. The Admiral paused. But I want you to understand something. They were wrong. About humans. About you. The footage of what you did has been shown to every military academy in the galaxy. You've become proof that humans don't break under pressure. You become something much more effective. Tyler spoke up from his bed. Something more dangerous, you mean? Admiral Thexon nodded slowly. Yes, that too. The graduation ceremony took place 6 weeks after the incident. The grand auditorium of the Galactic Military Academy was filled with cadets from 40 different species, their families watching from the upper galleries, and military officials from across the galaxy seated in positions of honor. The transparent walls showed the 3 moons of Kepler Station, now full and bright against the purple sky. Nina Cole stood in formation with the other graduating cadets, her uniform pressed and perfect. Beside her, Tyler Grant stood tall despite the healing scar across his chest. The doctors had said his recovery was remarkable. Most species would have needed 3 months to heal from that kind of injury. Tyler had done it in 6 weeks, pushing through physical therapy with the same determination that had gotten him through the academy. Admiral Thexon walked to the center of the stage. His voice carried through the auditorium without amplification. Today we graduate 203 cadets into the Galactic Defense Force. But before we proceed with the standard ceremony, there are 2 individuals who must be recognized for extraordinary valor under fire. The auditorium went silent. Everyone knew what was coming. The footage of Nina's 23 seconds had spread across every military installation in the galaxy. It was required viewing now for all combat training programs. Those 23 seconds had changed how every species viewed human capabilities. Cadet Nina Cole and Cadet Tyler Grant, front and center. Nina and Tyler stepped forward, marching in perfect synchronization to stand before the Admiral. Nina kept her eyes forward, her face neutral. She had been through 4 more psychological evaluations in the past 6 weeks. Every single one had shown the same result. No trauma, no anxiety, no nightmares. The psychologists were baffled. Dr. Chin had explained it as a delayed response, that the trauma might surface later. But Nina knew better. She had processed what happened. She had locked it away in the part of her mind where difficult things went, and she had moved forward. That was what humans did. They survived. For actions above and beyond the call of duty, Admiral Thexon said, holding up 2 small silver stars, for courage under fire, for saving a fellow cadet's life while under direct attack, and for demonstrating the highest standards of military excellence, I present you both with the Commandant's Star. He pinned the star to Tyler's uniform first, then to Nina's. The auditorium erupted in applause. Nina glanced sideways and saw tears running down several alien faces. The Velkians were stomping their feet, their version of approval. The Praxians were whistling, a high-pitched sound that meant respect. Even the Horthians, usually so reserved, were clapping with their environmental suit manipulators. But Nina also saw other faces. Cadets who had been friends with Korath and the other conspirators. They were not clapping. They sat with their arms crossed, their faces showing anger or shame or both. The conspiracy had torn through the academy like a disease, and not everyone had recovered. After the ceremony, Nina and Tyler stood in the reception hall while dozens of people came to congratulate them. Instructors shook their hands. Fellow cadets offered respectful nods. Family members hugged them. Nina's mother, a gray-haired woman with the same cold eyes as her daughter, pulled Nina aside. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. "You did everything right. I killed someone, Mom. You protected your partner. That's the job." Her mother's face softened slightly. "Are you really okay? No nightmares? No flashbacks?" "I'm fine," Nina replied. It was the truth. She had replayed those 23 seconds 1,000 times in her head, analyzing every decision, every movement. She would not change anything. That was enough. 6 months passed quickly. Nina and Tyler were assigned to a new tactical response team, the first in the Galactic Defense Force with a human majority. Out of 12 team members, 7 were human. The other 5 were volunteers from different species, all of them specifically requesting to work with humans after seeing the footage. Their first mission was a hostage rescue on a mining station near the edge of Council space. Pirates had taken over the station and were holding 40 workers prisoner. The local security forces had tried to negotiate, but the pirates were demanding things that could not be given. Nina studied the station schematics on the transport ship. 3 entry points, 12 hostiles, 40 civilians spread across 4 locations. Tyler marked positions on the holographic display. "If we split into 3 teams, we can hit all entry points simultaneously. Speed is critical. The longer we take, the more likely hostages die." Lieutenant Kexal, their Velkian team leader, watched the 2 humans work. He had volunteered for this assignment specifically because of Nina and Tyler. "How long do you need to plan the assault?" "We're done," Nina said. "We hit them in 20 minutes. Kexal's 6 hands twitched in surprise. 20 minutes? Most operations take hours of planning. "Most operations don't have humans," Tyler replied with a slight smile. The assault was perfect. 3 teams, 3 entry points, perfectly synchronized. The pirates never had a chance to hurt the hostages. The human team members moved through the station like they had done this 100 times before, even though it was their first real combat operation. Fast, efficient, lethal when necessary, restrained when possible. Afterward, Kexal filed his report with Admiral Thexon. The humans performed beyond expectations. Their reaction time is extraordinary. Their ability to adapt to changing situations is unmatched. And their stress response, what they call being in the zone, allows them to function at peak efficiency even in the most chaotic situations. The report concluded with a recommendation that all tactical response teams include at least 3 human members. Within a year, that recommendation became standard policy. The phrase 23 seconds entered military vocabulary across the galaxy. It became a benchmark, a standard that all species measured their combat response time against. Training instructors would show the footage and say, "This is what we're aiming for. This is the standard." Nina and Tyler led their team through 17 missions in their first year. Hostage rescues, counter-piracy operations, disaster response, even first contact situations that required a delicate military presence. Their success rate was perfect. 0 team casualties. 0 civilian casualties. Every mission objective achieved. On the 1-year anniversary of the shooting, Nina stood in the same marketplace where Tyler had been shot. The Academy had preserved it as a training scenario, teaching new cadets about weapons safety and conspiracy awareness. She walked to the exact spot where Tyler had fallen and looked up at the gallery where Koreth had fired from. Tyler found her there an hour later. "You okay?" "I was just thinking," Nina replied. Koreth wanted to prove that humans were too weak for military service. Instead, he proved the opposite. He proved that when you push a human into a corner, when you threaten someone they care about, they don't break. They fight back. Is that what those 23 seconds were? Fighting back. Nina considered the question. No. Those 23 seconds were me refusing to let you die. Everything else was just the result of that decision. They stood together in silence, 2 humans who had changed the galaxy's understanding of what their species could do. The commandant's stars on their uniforms caught the light from the emergency strips, small silver reminders that courage could be measured in seconds. 23 of them to be exact.